Stand on this causeway 500 years ago, and you would see something European explorers had no context for: a massive metropolis floating on water. This was Tenochtitlan. It housed roughly 200,000 people, making it larger than Paris, and its strict daily maintenance made it significantly cleaner than London. This map illustrates the geographical anomaly of its location. The Aztecs built their capital directly upon a swampy, uninhabitable island situated squarely in the middle of Lake Texcoco. Yet despite its heavy stone pyramids and permanent infrastructure, this entire civilization would be erased in less than 24 months. To understand how an empire of this magnitude vanished so completely, we have to dissect its anatomy layer by layer, starting at its watery edges and moving inward to its ideological core. The first challenge of building a city in a saline lake is keeping the population alive. You have to secure thousands of tons of food and fresh water in a harsh environment where neither naturally exists. The brilliant solution was the chinampas. These floating gardens were engineered by layering mud and reeds in a precise grid, creating highly productive agricultural plots right on the water's surface. For drinking water, a heavy stone aqueduct ran directly from the mountain springs of Chapultepec, pumping a steady supply of fresh water over the lake and into the city. By mastering this hostile ecosystem, the Aztecs removed the natural limits of starvation and drought. They created a foundation that allowed their civic population to rapidly multiply. Moving inward from the agricultural ring, the primary thoroughfares of the massive city were not streets, but highly organized canals. Goods and people navigated the blocks almost entirely by canoe. The city enforced strict hygiene protocols to keep the dense urban center functioning. Cargo was inspected at the borders, waste was collected systematically, and public pathways were swept daily. This intense organization peaked at the Tlatelolco marketplace. Up to 60,000 people traded here daily, moving heavy volumes of luxury goods and utilizing cacao beans as a standardized currency. This scale of civic bureaucracy and economic organization placed Tenochtitlan among the most sophisticated urban centers of the 16th century. At the geographic center of the island stood the Templo Mayor, a massive twin pyramid dedicated to the gods of rain and war. This codex page details the economic engine that funded the massive structures. The empire ran on a tribute system, fueled by conquest and forced extraction. Every conquered city was assigned strict quotas, draining surrounding regions of items like jaguar pelts and exotic feathers. To maintain their perfect center, Tenochtitlan relied entirely on subjugation. Consequently, they surrounded themselves with a massive ring of resentful, eager enemies actively waiting for a chance to strike back. When Hernán Cortés arrived in 1519, his incredibly small Spanish force could not have conquered the massive city alone. He succeeded because he acted as a catalyst, rallying tens of thousands of indigenous warriors, like the Tlaxcala, eager for revenge against the tribute system. This diagram illustrates the ultimate invisible weapon the Spanish brought with them. A smallpox epidemic swept rapidly through a population with zero immunity, killing the emperor and tens of thousands of citizens in a matter of months. During the brutal 3-month siege of 1521, the massive force of Spanish and indigenous allies pushed inward from the shores. They severed the Chapultepec aqueduct and manually dismantled the metropolis, street by street. Tenochtitlan's flawless physical engineering was ultimately completely undone by its disastrous geopolitical engineering. They had essentially built their own destroyers. After the city fell, the Spanish did not simply occupy the ruins. They initiated a campaign of deliberate physical and cultural erasure. They tore down the towering temples and used the heavy stones to fill the canals, aggressively flattening the island's unique terrain to build a European-style metropolis over the rubble. However, the physical skeleton of Tenochtitlan survived. The ancient causeways were paved into modern highways, and the colonial cathedral was built directly atop the old sacred precinct. The ancient capital still rests just below the pavement. Modern construction projects and archaeological digs are continually uncovering the grid, piece by piece. Tenochtitlan was not fully erased. It was buried alive, permanently anchoring the physical geography and cultural identity of modern Mexico.